I'm about to tell you a story that'll make your blood boil and your heart sing at the same time. And before we get into it, I need you to do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what I'm about to share with you is the kind of raw, unfiltered truth that'll have you checking over your shoulder at the next family gathering. Drop a comment if you've ever had family betray you when you were at your lowest. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one. My name is Ernestine James. My friends call me Ernie. My late husband called me Tina Baby. And my sister-in-law, well, she's about to learn why you don't mess with a 72-year-old black woman who survived Jim Crow, Mississippi, and made it out with her dignity and her fire intact. See, baby, I grew up in a time when survival wasn't optional. It was an art form. My mama used to say, Ernie, the world's gonna try to break you in ways you can't even imagine yet. But remember, we come from people who turned scraps into Sunday dinner and shanties into sanctuaries. Never forget who you are. I never did forget. And that's exactly why I'm still here to tell this story. 3 months ago, I buried the love of my life. Terrence James, Vietnam veteran, retired postal worker, and the finest man to ever walk this earth. If you ask me, 50 years of marriage. 50 years of him making me laugh when I wanted to cry. 50 years of building a life together from absolutely nothing. When Terrence passed, he left me with 3 things. Our paid-off house that we bought back in '78 when the neighborhood was still redlined, his collection of jazz records that he spent 40 years building, and King, his Rottweiler who'd been his shadow for 8 years. Now, let me tell you about King. That dog was more than just a pet. When Terrence came back from Vietnam, he had nightmares. The kind that make a grown man wake up screaming, drenched in sweat, thinking he's back in those jungles. King had a way of sensing when those dreams were coming. He'd rest his big head on Terrence's chest and just breathe with him until my husband came back to the present. That dog slept at the foot of Terrence's hospital bed during those final 3 weeks. And when my husband took his last breath, King let out a howl that I swear shook the windows. The nurses cried. I cried. That dog knew. So you best believe when I say King was all I had left of Terrence. I mean that with every fiber of my being. But my sister-in-law, Shanice, Terrence's baby sister, she never liked King. Called him menacing. Called him dangerous. Had the nerve to say he looked like those attack dogs they used on us during the marches back in the day. That comment right there, that told me everything I needed to know about Shanice. She was the type of black woman who spent her whole life running from anything she thought made her look too black, too ghetto, to anything that didn't fit into her perfect little respectability box. Terrence used to joke about his sister. He'd say, Shanice wishes she was white so bad. If you cut her, she'd bleed mayonnaise instead of blood. We'd laugh, but underneath that laughter was a sadness. Because it was true. But I never imagined, not in my wildest nightmares, what Shanice would do to me, what she'd take from me, and how she'd smile in my face while doing it. Stick around, because what happens next is going to make you question everyone at your next family reunion. The funeral was on a Saturday. Beautiful service. Greater Hope Baptist Church was packed wall to wall. Terrence had touched so many lives, his postal route, his work with the veterans group, his mentoring of young black boys in the neighborhood who needed a father figure. Pastor Williams gave a sermon that had grown men weeping. He talked about Terrence's service to his country, even though his country didn't always serve him back. Talked about how Terrence came home to a nation that spit on him for wearing the uniform, yet he still stood proud. Brother Terrence James, Pastor Williams said, his voice booming through the sanctuary, was the kind of man who turned bitterness into blessing, who took rejection and turned it into resilience. That's the legacy he leaves behind. I sat in the front pew, King lying at my feet. The ushers had initially said no dogs allowed, but Pastor Williams overruled them. That dog was more faithful to Brother Terrence than some people in this church. He'd said, "He stays." Shanice sat 2 rows behind me. I could feel her eyes burning into the back of my head every time someone acknowledged King. After the service, during the repast in the church fellowship hall, she cornered me by the sweet potato pie. "Ernestine," she said, her voice dripping with fake concern, "how are you managing? Really managing?" "I'm taking it one day at a time. Shanice, that's all any of us can do." She glanced down at King, who was lying quietly beside me, not bothering a soul. Her lip curled up just slightly, just enough for me to catch it. "You know," she continued, "that dog is awfully big, and you're not getting any younger. What if he pulls you down? What if you fall and can't get up? Have you thought about that?" I looked at her real steady. "King has never pulled me anywhere I didn't want to go. We're just fine." "Well," she sniffed, "I'm just saying if it becomes too much, my kids would love to have him. We've got that big backyard. And Shanice." I cut her off, my voice firm. "King is not going anywhere. He's family. He's all I have left of my husband. So let's not have this conversation again." Her smile tightened. "Of course, Ernestine, I'm just trying to help." But I saw something flash in her eyes. Something cold. Something calculating. My best friend, Beverly, had been watching the whole exchange from across the room. She came over as soon as Shanice walked away. "Girl," Beverly whispered, "I don't trust that woman as far as I can throw her. And with my arthritis, that ain't far at all." "I know, Bev. I know. Watch yourself, Ernie. That woman's jealousy is older than her good sense. She's been mad at you since the day Terrence chose you over that girl she tried to set him up with back in '72. Beverly was right. Shanice had introduced Terrence to some woman from her Jack and Jill club, light-skinned, straight-haired, college-educated. Everything Shanice thought Terrence should want. But Terrence had chosen me instead. Dark-skinned me. Natural-haired me. Didn't go to college but could balance a checkbook and run a household me. Shanice never forgave either of us for that. 2 weeks after the funeral, my daughter Natasha called me from Atlanta. "Mama," she said, "you need to get away for a little bit. Come stay with me and the grandkids. Let me take care of you for a change." I didn't want to leave. Didn't want to leave the house where Terrence and I had built our life. But Natasha was insistent. And truthfully, I was exhausted. The kind of bone-deep tired that sleep doesn't fix. "Okay, baby," I finally agreed. Just for 2 weeks. That decision almost cost me everything. Before I left for Atlanta, I needed someone to watch King. My neighbor, Jerome Peterson, was the obvious choice. Jerome had been Terrence's best friend since they were stationed together in Da Nang. 75 years old, retired firefighter, lived 3 doors down with his wife, Patricia. "Ernie, don't you even worry about it," Jerome said when I asked him. "King can stay with us. Patricia loves that dog, and you know he'll be in good hands." I packed King's food, his favorite blanket that still smelled like Terrence, his medication for his hips, and his toys. I kissed his big head and whispered, "Mama will be back soon. Baby, you be good for Uncle Jerome." King licked my face, and I swear I saw understanding in those brown eyes. The first few days in Atlanta were good for me. My grandbabies, Zoe and Marcus Jr., kept me busy. We baked cookies, watched movies, went to the park. Natasha fussed over me, making sure I ate, making sure I rested, making sure I wasn't sitting alone crying in the dark. On day 4, my phone rang. Shanice's name flashed on the screen. My stomach tightened, but I answered. "Ernestine," she said, her voice shaking, "something terrible has happened." My heart stopped. "What? What is it?" "It's King. He attacked Brandon." Brandon was Shanice's son. My nephew, 28 years old, worked in IT, gentle as they come. "What do you mean attacked?" I could barely get the words out. He lunged at Brandon when he came over to check on the house for you. Just went crazy. Brandon's at the emergency room now. He had to get stitches. No, I whispered. No, King wouldn't. Ernestine, I didn't want to do this without telling you, but we had to act fast. For public safety. We had to take him to animal control. The room started spinning. You took him where? They evaluated him, and Ernestine, I'm so sorry. They had to put him down. He was too aggressive. Too dangerous. They said he could have killed Brandon. I dropped the phone. Literally dropped it. Natasha came running from the kitchen. Mama, what's wrong? I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't process what I'd just heard. King was dead. My husband's dog. My companion. My last piece of Terrence. Gone. Natasha picked up the phone, spoke to Shanice, and her face went from concerned to furious in about 10 seconds flat. You did what? She screamed into the phone. Without my mother's permission? Without even letting her say goodbye? Who the hell do you think you are? But it was too late. According to Shanice, it was done. King was gone. I didn't sleep that night, or the next night, or the night after that. I cried until I had no tears left, and then I cried some more. My blood pressure shot up, so high that Natasha almost took me to the hospital. Mama, you've got to calm down, she kept saying. Your health. My health. I finally snapped. My health? Natasha, that woman murdered my dog. Terrence's dog. She murdered him. When I finally got Jerome on the phone 2 days later, his voice was tight with rage. Ernie, I swear to God, I had no idea. Shanice showed up here saying you'd called her, said I had a family emergency, and you needed her to pick up King. I believed her because she's family. I trusted her. What happened, Jerome? Tell me everything. She had some story ready. Said you'd changed your mind about him staying with us. Said you wanted him to stay with her instead. I should have called you to verify, but Ernie, she was so convincing. I'm so sorry. That's when I knew. Shanice had planned this. Every word, every lie, every calculated move. I came back to Los Angeles 2 days later. Couldn't stay in Atlanta any longer. Couldn't pretend to be okay around my grandbabies when I was dying inside. The house felt empty, impossibly empty. No click of King's nails on the hardwood floors. No soft snoring from the corner where he slept. No warm body pressed against my legs while I cooked dinner. Just silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Beverly came over every single day that first week. She'd let herself in with her spare key, find me sitting in Terrence's recliner, staring at nothing. Ernie, baby, you've got to eat something, she'd say, bringing soup or casserole or whatever the church ladies had dropped off. But I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't function. I failed him, Bev. I said one afternoon, my voice hollow. Terrence asked me to take care of King. Made me promise. And I failed. No, ma'am, Beverly said firmly, gripping my hand. You didn't fail anybody. That snake Shanice did this. Not you. Pastor Williams came by to check on me. Sat in my living room, his old Bible in his hands, and just let me talk. I keep thinking about the last time I saw King. I told him how I kissed his head and told him I'd be back. He trusted me, Pastor, and I let him down. Sister Ernestine, Pastor Williams said gently, the Lord knows your heart. He knows you loved that animal-like family, and he sees what was done to you. The Bible says vengeance belongs to the Lord, but it also says the truth will out. Have faith. I wanted to have faith, but all I felt was rage and grief twisted up so tight in my chest I could barely breathe. Shanice had the audacity to show up at my door one week after I got back. She stood on my porch holding a covered dish, tears in her eyes. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. Ernestine, I've been sick about this. She started, I just want you to know that I did what I thought was right. Brandon could have been seriously hurt. I was protecting my son. I stared at her, really looked at her designer purse, her fresh manicure, her perfectly pressed linen pants. This woman who'd never struggled a day in her life, who'd never had to choose between medicine and groceries, who'd married a doctor and lived in View Park and looked down her nose at everyone who hadn't. Get off my porch, I said quietly. Ernestine, I said, get off my porch before I forget I'm a Christian woman. She flinched. I was just trying to. You were trying to hurt me, I said, my voice getting louder. You've been trying to hurt me since 1972 when Terrence chose me over that bougie girl you tried to set him up with. You've been jealous and petty and small for 50 years, and you finally found a way to really stick the knife in, didn't you? That's not fair. Fair. I stepped out onto the porch, and she actually backed up. You want to talk about fair? You took the last living piece of my husband, and you murdered him. You forged lies, manipulated Jerome, and killed an innocent animal because of your spite. Don't you dare talk to me about fair. Neighbors were starting to peek out their windows. I didn't care. I want you off my property. I want you out of my life. And if I ever see you anywhere near me again, we're going to have a problem that your doctor husband can't fix with money. She hurried to her car, and I watched her drive away. But the rage didn't leave. It just settled deeper into my bones, mixing with the grief until I didn't know where one ended and the other began. 3 weeks after King died, I still couldn't sleep through the night. I'd doze off around 11, then wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning, wide awake, mind racing. This particular night, it was 2:47 a.m. I know because I looked at the clock on Terrence's nightstand. I still couldn't bring myself to move it to my side of the bed. I lay there for 20 minutes, trying to fall back asleep, but my mind wouldn't shut off. Finally, I got up, put on my robe and slippers, and headed to the kitchen to make some chamomile tea. The house was dark, except for the little night light in the hallway. As I filled the kettle with water, I glanced out the kitchen window into the backyard. The moon was full that night, bright enough to see everything clearly. The rose bushes I'd been meaning to trim. The bird bath that needed cleaning. The old tool shed in the back corner where Terrence used to keep his lawn equipment. I was about to turn away when I heard it. Scratching. Faint but persistent. Coming from outside. My first thought was raccoons. We'd had problems with them getting into the trash before. I grabbed the flashlight we kept in the junk drawer and headed toward the back door. The scratching got louder as I approached, but it wasn't coming from the trash cans. It was coming from the direction of the tool shed. I stepped out onto the porch, my heart starting to pound. The scratching stopped for a moment, then started again. More urgent this time. Desperate. Who's there? I called out, my voice shakier than I wanted it to be. Then I heard something else, a sound that made my blood run cold and my heart leap at the same time. Whining. Low, soft whining. A dog. My hands started trembling so bad I almost dropped the flashlight. I made my way across the yard, my slippers getting wet from the dew on the grass, my robe catching on the rosebush thorns. The whining got louder, more insistent. I reached the tool shed and aimed the flashlight at the base. There was a gap between the shed and the ground, maybe 8 inches high, where some of the foundation blocks had settled over the years. The scratching was coming from under there. I got down on my knees, my poor arthritic knees, screaming in protest, and shined the light into the darkness under the shed. 2 eyes reflected back at me. Brown eyes. Familiar eyes. Oh my God, I whispered. I lay flat on my stomach on the cold, wet ground and reached my hand into the gap. A nose touched my palm. then a tongue, rough and wet, licked my fingers. King. My voice broke. King, baby, is that you? The whining intensified. The scratching became frantic. Hold on, baby. Hold on. Mama's gonna get you out. I pushed myself up and ran back to the house, grabbed my phone, and called Jerome. Ernie. His voice was groggy, with sleep. It's 3 a.m, what? Jerome, get over here now. Bring tools. Bring a crowbar. Just get over here now. What's wrong? Are you okay? King is under my tool shed. He's alive, Jerome. He's alive. Silence on the other end. Then, I'm on my way. I ran back outside, got back down on the ground, and kept talking to King through the gap. It's okay, baby. You're okay. Mama's here. We're gonna get you out. I promise we're gonna get you out. His whining turned into soft barks, like he was answering me, like he was saying, I knew you'd come. I knew you wouldn't leave me. Jerome showed up in his pajamas with a toolbox and a crowbar in less than 10 minutes. Stand back, Ernie, Jerome said, assessing the shed in the beam of his heavy-duty flashlight. This whole side is rotted. We can pull these boards right off. Jerome wedged the crowbar between 2 planks and pulled. The wood groaned and splintered. Patricia showed up in her housecoat carrying blankets and a bowl of water. Sweet Jesus, she breathed when she heard King whining. That baby's really under there. It took 20 minutes to pull enough boards away to create an opening. The whole time, I kept talking to King, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. Almost there, baby. Just a little longer. Mama's coming. Finally, Jerome pulled away the last board. Okay, Ernie, call him out. I knelt at the opening. King, come here, boy. Come to Mama. For a moment, nothing happened. Then I saw movement in the darkness. Slow, hesitant movement. King crawled out inch by inch. When he finally emerged fully, my heart shattered. He was emaciated. His ribs showed through his coat. His fur was matted with dirt and burrs. He had a cut above his eye that had scabbed over. He was trembling, but he was alive. Oh, baby, I sobbed, wrapping my arms around his neck. Oh, my sweet baby. King collapsed against me, his whole body shaking. He licked my face over and over, whining and crying like he couldn't believe I was real. Patricia brought the water bowl, and King drank like he'd been in a desert. Then she wrapped him in the blanket and helped me get him into the house. We laid him on Terrence's old recliner, the one I'd been sitting in during my darkest moments. King looked up at me with those eyes, and I swear I saw forgiveness in them. Forgiveness for leaving him. Forgiveness for not protecting him. Jerome, I said, my voice hard as steel, I need to know everything. How is this possible? Shanice said he was dead. She said animal control put him down. Jerome's jaw clenched. Let me make some calls. I know people at animal control. Give me an hour. It took 45 minutes. Jerome came back with his face set in rage. There's no record of King anywhere in the system. No intake. No euthanasia record. Nothing. Then where has he been? Patricia asked. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered anyway. Mrs. James, a young man's voice. My name is Darius Mitchell. I'm a vet tech at Compassionate Care Animal Hospital in Carson. I need to talk to you about King. My heart started pounding. I'm listening. Ma'am, a woman brought King in 3 weeks ago. Said her name was Shanice Richardson. Said she was the owner. Said the dog had attacked her son and needed to be put down immediately. Go on. Something felt wrong. She couldn't answer basic questions about his medical history. Couldn't tell me his birthday, what food he ate, nothing. And King, ma'am, that dog was calm as could be. Tail wagging. Friendly. Didn't show a single sign of aggression. I closed my eyes, tears streaming down my face. I couldn't do it, Darius continued, his voice thick with emotion. My grandma just passed 6 months ago. Her dog was all she had at the end. I couldn't take someone's dog from them based on lies. So I sedated King, gave that woman fake ashes from our crematorium, and told her it was done. Where has he been for 3 weeks? I asked. With me. At my apartment. I tried to find you, but she'd given fake contact information. I microchipped him to my information temporarily, kept him fed and safe. Then last week, I drove him back to your neighborhood and let him out. I hoped he'd find his way home. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Not just any lawyer, Theodore Banks, the same attorney who'd handled Terrence's estate. A black man in his 60s who'd built his practice on protecting our community from exactly this kind of violation. Ernestine, Theodore said when I finished telling him everything, what Shanice did isn't just morally reprehensible. It's criminal. We're talking fraud, trespassing, theft, attempted animal cruelty, elder abuse, and emotional distress. I want her prosecuted, Theodore. I want her to pay for what she did. She will. But first, we need documentation. Every text message, every phone call, every witness statement. Can you get Jerome and Patricia to write down everything they remember? Already done. Jerome typed it up last night. Good. What about the vet tech, Darius? He's willing to testify. He kept all the paperwork. Shanice signed documents under false pretenses. Even better. And Ernie, I need to ask you something. Are you prepared for how ugly this is going to get? Shanice is family. The church is going to have opinions. People are going to pressure you to forgive and move on. I thought about King, still recovering in my living room. Thought about the 3 weeks he'd spent alone, scared, probably thinking I'd abandoned him. Thought about Shanice's face when she stood on my porch with her fake tears and her covered dish. Theodore, I'm 72 years old. I grew up in Mississippi during Jim Crow. I've had white people spit on me. I've had police dogs turned on me during peaceful protests. I've had crosses burned in my yard. I survived all of that with my dignity intact. You think I'm afraid of some church gossip and a conniving sister-in-law? Theodore chuckled. I'll take that as a no. Give me 3 days to build the case. While Theodore worked, I had another visitor. Brandon, Shanice's son, showed up at my door, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Aunt Ernie, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Can I come in? I let him in, but didn't offer him anything to drink. Just stood there with my arms crossed. I need to tell you the truth, Brandon said, his eyes filling with tears. King never attacked me, never even growled at me. I came by the house to check on it, like you asked, and King was happy to see me. We played in the yard for a bit, and then I left. That's it. My blood went cold. Then why did your mother? I didn't know she was going to say that. Brandon's voice cracked. I came home from work that day, and she told me what she'd done. Said she'd taken King to be put down. Said she told you he attacked me. I was horrified. I confronted her, and she said. His voice broke completely. He wiped his eyes. She said, what, Brandon? She said you were getting too old to take care of a big dog. That it was only a matter of time before you got hurt. That she was doing you a favor. That you'd thank her eventually. A favor, I repeated, my voice flat. I told her she was wrong. Told her she needed to tell you the truth. We've been fighting about it ever since. My wife is barely speaking to her. My kids don't understand why Grandma did something so cruel. Brandon pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. This is a signed statement. Everything I just told you, in writing, notarized, for your lawyer. I took the envelope. Why are you doing this? Because Uncle Terrence was good to me. He taught me how to change a tire, how to throw a football, how to be a man. And because what my mother did is unforgivable. Theodore called me 5 days later. Ernie, we have enough to press charges. But before we do, I think you should confront Shanice one more time. With witnesses. I want her on record, either admitting what she did or lying about it. Either way, we win. What do you have in mind? Sunday dinner. At your house. Invite her and her husband. Invite Jerome and Patricia. Invite Brandon. Invite Pastor Williams. Let's see if she can lie to everyone at once. I made the calls that afternoon, kept my voice neutral. I'd like to gather the family together this Sunday, break bread, and try to heal. Can you come? Shanice sounded surprised, but pleased. Of course, Ernestine. I'm so glad you're ready to move forward. I'll bring my famous sweet potato pie. Sunday came. I set the dining room table with Terrence's mother's china, the good stuff we only used for special occasions. Made a pot roast, collard greens, mac and cheese, cornbread, the works. Pastor Williams arrived first, understanding immediately what was about to happen. Sister Ernestine, are you sure about this? As sure as I've ever been about anything. Jerome and Patricia came next, then Brandon with his wife, Keisha. Finally, Shanice and her husband, Dr. Marcus Richardson. Shanice waltzed in wearing a cream-colored pantsuit, pearls, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Ernestine, this looks wonderful. I'm so proud of you for taking this step toward reconciliation. We sat down to eat. The conversation was strained but civil. We talked about the weather, about church, about nothing that mattered. Then, as I was serving dessert, I said, Shanice, there's something I need to ask you. She looked up from her pie, fork halfway to her mouth. Of course. Why did you lie about King attacking Brandon? The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Shanice's face went pale, then flushed red. I don't know what you... Yes, you do, I said calmly. Brandon already told me the truth. King never attacked him. Never even growled at him. You made it all up. Dr. Richardson looked at his wife, confusion written all over his face. Shanice, what is she talking about? Brandon? Shanice turned to her son, her voice shrill. Tell them what happened. Brandon looked his mother in the eye. King never touched me. Mama, you know that. I already gave Aunt Ernie a signed statement. You did what? Shanice stood up so fast her chair fell backward. I told the truth. Brandon said firmly. Something you should have done. Shanice, Pastor Williams said gently, is this true? She looked around the table, seeing no allies, no escape. Her perfect mask cracked. Fine, she spat. Fine. Yes, I lied. That dog didn't attack anyone. But Ernestine had no business keeping a dog that size at her age. She's too old, too frail. I'm sitting right here, I said coldly, and I'm strong enough to know what you did. What I did? I did what was necessary. You've been falling apart since Terrence died, walking around like a ghost. That dog was just going to make it worse, keep you stuck in the past. So, you decided to kill him. I finished. Without my knowledge. Without my consent. You stole my property, forged documents, and traumatized an innocent animal because you thought you knew better. Dr. Richardson stood up, his face ashen. Shanice, please tell me you didn't actually have the dog put down. The room erupted, everyone talking at once. Shanice trying to justify herself. Her husband demanding answers. I raised my hand, and everyone went quiet. King is alive, I said. The look on Shanice's face was worth everything I'd been through. Pure shock. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. That's impossible, she whispered. The vet gave me his ashes. I saw. You saw what you wanted to see, I said. Fake ashes. Because the vet tech you tried to manipulate had more integrity in his little finger than you have in your entire body. I walked to the living room and returned with King. He'd filled out over the past week. His coat was brushed and shining, and he walked with his head high. Shanice actually stumbled backward. No, this can't. King walked right past her, like she didn't exist, and sat at my feet. This is King, I announced to everyone. Alive, healthy, home where he belongs. Despite Shanice's best efforts to murder him, Dr. Richardson sank into his chair, his head in his hands. Oh my God, Shanice, what have you done? I need to tell you all something else, I continued. I've filed criminal charges, fraud, elder abuse, attempted animal cruelty, trespassing, and theft. My lawyer has statements from Jerome, Patricia, Brandon, and the vet tech. We have the forged documents. We have everything. Shanice's face went from red to white. You can't do this. I'm family. You can't. I can and I did, I said firmly. You thought I was weak. You thought grief made me vulnerable. You thought you could swoop in and take control because I'm old and alone. But you forgot something crucial, Shanice. I stepped closer to her, and she actually flinched. I'm not alone. I have my church family. I have my friends. I have my neighbors who've known me for 40 years. And I have the strength of every Black woman who came before me, who survived worse than you could ever dream up. Pastor Williams stood. Shanice, I think you need to leave. And I need to tell you that the deacon board will be meeting about your membership status. What you've done is unconscionable. Pastor, please. Shanice reached for him, but he stepped back. We'll be in touch. Dr. Richardson grabbed his wife's purse. Come on, Shanice. We're leaving. As they headed to the door, I said one more thing. Marcus. Dr. Richardson turned. There's something else you should know. Terrence had a life insurance policy, $250,000. It was set up in a trust with specific conditions. I pulled out the trust documents Theodore had found while going through Terrence's papers. The trust requires the trustee, that's me, to approve any distributions to family members. And there's a character clause. Any family member who causes me harm, distress, or acts against my interests is automatically disqualified from receiving anything. Dr. Richardson's face went gray. I knew why. Shanice had told him about that money. They'd been counting on it. You were already struggling financially, weren't you? I asked gently. That's what this was really about. You thought if King was gone, if I was alone and desperate, I'd be more likely to release those funds to help family. Shanice's silence was answer enough. Well, that money is going somewhere, I said, to the ASPCA, to rescue organizations, to veterinary programs that help seniors keep their pets. Every single penny, in King's name and Terrence's memory. You can't do that. Shanice shrieked. Already done, I said. Theodore filed the paperwork yesterday. Dr. Richardson grabbed his wife's arm and pulled her toward the door. The last thing I heard was him saying, I told you not to mess with that woman. I told you. The door slammed. 3 months have passed since that Sunday dinner. And let me tell you how this story ends. The criminal charges stuck. Shanice took a plea deal to avoid trial, community service, a hefty fine, and a permanent record that'll follow her for the rest of her life. She was quietly asked to leave Greater Hope Baptist. Last I heard, she and Marcus are attending some megachurch across town where nobody knows their story. But the real consequences, those were social. In the Black community, reputation is everything. And Shanice's reputation is destroyed. The church ladies made sure everyone knew what she'd done. Beverly, bless her heart, worked that phone tree like she was conducting a symphony. Within 2 weeks, every beauty shop, every Sunday service, every community event was buzzing with the story of the woman who tried to kill her grieving sister-in-law's dog for insurance money. Her Jack and Jill Club quietly asked her to step down. Her social circles dried up. Her daughter-in-law, Keisha, stopped bringing the grandkids around. Even her own mama called her out at a family gathering, saying, "I didn't raise you to be cruel." As for me, I'm thriving. King is healthy and happy. We take our walks every evening through the neighborhood, and people stop to pet him and ask about him. He's become something of a local celebrity, the dog who survived. The insurance money funded a scholarship program at the local community college for students pursuing veterinary medicine. It's called the Terrence and King James Memorial Scholarship. First recipient, Darius Mitchell, the vet tech who saved King's life. He's going back to school to become a full veterinarian. Brandon and I are closer than ever. He stops by every week, brings his kids, lets them play with King in the yard. He told me privately that his mother's actions were the final straw in their relationship. She showed me who she really was. He said, and I believe her. But here's what I want you to understand, everyone watching this. This story isn't just about a dog. It's about power. It's about respect. It's about the assumption that Black women, especially older Black women, are weak, are vulnerable, are easy targets. Shanice looked at me and saw a grieving widow, someone she could manipulate, someone who would just accept her cruelty because she was tired, because she was sad, because she was alone. She forgot that Black women like me are the daughters of survivors, the granddaughters of warriors. We're the ones who hid freedom fighters in our homes, who walked miles to work during the bus boycotts, who raised children in a world that was actively trying to destroy them. We learned how to smile while we strategize, how to pray while we plan, how to appear soft while sharpening our teeth. Shanice thought she was dealing with a helpless old woman. She didn't realize she was dealing with a matriarch who'd been preparing for spiritual warfare since before Shanice was born. Now, I need you to do something for me. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been underestimated or betrayed by family, hit that like button, drop a comment telling me your story, and subscribe to Vintage Vengeance because we're just getting started with these stories of justice. Remember, vengeance isn't always about revenge. Sometimes it's about standing up, setting boundaries, refusing to be a victim, and making damn sure that anyone who tries to take advantage of your grief learns a lesson they'll never forget. I'm Ernestine James. I'm 72 years old. I survived Jim Crow, the civil rights movement, raising Black children in America, and burying the love of my life. And I'm still here, still standing, still strong. Don't ever forget who we are or where we come from. King and I are doing just fine. Better than fine. We're thriving. And that's the best revenge of all. Now go ahead and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because trust me, there's somebody in your life who needs this reminder. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay proud, and never let them see you as less than the force of nature you are. This is Vintage Vengeance.